Tappy has just released Arc 7 Chapter 84, and this video will be a summary of the chapter. Highly recommend you check out my Arc 7 Chapter 83 summary. Anyways, let's begin. The flames of rebellion grew stronger and stronger as the days passed. It has now been 9 years since Vincent Valaquia took the throne. The public sentiment has never been in turmoil like it is now. The Valaquian Empire has a history of conflicts. However, even if an era of peace descended upon Valaquia, it would be impossible for peace to exist beyond the eyes and ears of the imperial city, so not all of the people were relieved. Only in the imperial capital, upon the emperor's lap, would there be no conflict. A few years ago, there was an assassination attempt on the emperor's life, of which the 9 divine generals were behind. Since that day, there was no true relief for the empire. The emperor, who has not been shaken during the assassination attempt, would similarly not be shaken now, no matter what happened in the empire. However, it is clear that the empire is beginning to show cracks. Not that any of the soldiers would report that, otherwise they'll be at the risk of death. We see that many civilians and military officers are in the palace. If you were seen as weak here, you would be put to death. However, they were not afraid of death itself, but merely a dog's death. These people wanted to die as heroes of Valaquia in battle. The Prime Minister stood in silence as he awaited a response from the Emperor. The Emperor, Vincent Valaquia, was before the throne. The flag of the Valaquian Empire was hung up on the wall behind the throne. The throne was also passed down from generation to generation and was a symbol of the Empire. Vincent sat back in his throne. Vincent showed no skill in martial arts or even using a weapon. However, despite that, if he sits on the throne, then it deserves merit. The Emperor embodies the sword of the Empire, so even if Vincent had no martial arts experience, it didn't change the fact that the people before him were hesitant. These generals could close the distance and kill the Emperor easily. However, the Emperor emanated a presence that commanded attention. The silence was broken by Vincent, who said, "Relief for the people? When does the Emperor look at the people for guidance?" The Prime Minister, hearing this, stated that there are rumours of dissatisfaction amongst the people, and this could spread. However, Vincent merely states to drain out the poison. The Prime Minister gives his opinion to the Emperor to reconsider. Vincent, however, hasn't really taken any proactive steps to truly squash the rebellion. The Prime Minister believes that sending out a divine general to squash some of the fighting isn't truly tackling the root of the issue and more should be done. However, the Emperor comments that the Prime Minister speaks as if he's the leader of the rebellion. Of course, the Prime Minister disagrees with that statement. By the way, editor's note, fun fact, you need to realize that this is not Vincent, this is Chisha, and the Prime Minister is actually behind the rebellion, so this is obviously Tappy trying to joke around. So yeah, the Prime Minister is behind the rebellion. However, Vincent asks if the Prime Minister doubts his words, and the Prime Minister says that he does not. If accomplishments and words were necessary for trust, then achieving the throne would demonstrate Vincent's accomplishments. Vincent then asked if he needs to speak about his plan, asking if the Prime Minister requires to hear of the plan in order to fully obey him. Again, the Prime Minister disagrees, saying that he doesn't need to hear the plan. With that, Vincent then tells them to get on with the job. The small exchange actually brought the others in the palace to Vincent's side. After all, a man of Vincent's caliber said that he had a plan, and that was all the generals needed to hear to be won back over to Vincent Valaquia's side. Vincent then repeats that he will not tell the PM, the Prime Minister, his plan, but reiterates that the people of Wallachia must be strong. With that, Vincent promised the generals of a battlefield worthy of their sword and wolf-like ways. With that, the generals present in the royal palace burned in passion, and they were now fully 100% confident in Vincent. He had won them over. However, the Prime Minister still had one question to ask. This caused Vincent to question him again, stating that the Prime Minister no longer had the support of the generals in the palace with him now. Vincent then tells the Prime Minister to speak, and the Prime Minister tells Vincent of the Crown Prince, Vincent's apparent illegitimate child and the source behind the rebellion. The room was tense. Even the generals had heard of the rumours and wanted to know how the Emperor would respond. However, the Emperor cut it down easily, stating that he has no children, and to find the child, saying he will make use of the child for amusement, and he had a wicked smile on his face. With that, the scene changes. Are you sure the child is not yours? It was the same question asked hours ago in front of so many people. However, the tone of voice was different. This was a life and death question for the man who asked it. This place was neither the throne room or royal palace. It was the Prime Minister's estate. Vincent and the Prime Minister stood atop the Wallachian Empire, and to onlookers it seemed like they did not get along. However, the Emperor Vincent would routinely visit the Prime Minister at his estate, such that they are now currently sitting across each other right now. Again, Vincent stated that he has no heir. The Prime Minister states that this room cannot be overheard, and that the Prime Minister states that not even Obart would be able to eavesdrop, so any secret is safe in this room. Apparently this Teahouse room was built for secret talks, and was the cost of a small fortress. It was coated in some form of magic ward, or potentially even a meteor that protects those inside from being heard. The Prime Minister then asks again if Vincent had a child, and again Vincent states he does not, and then asks what the Prime Minister would do if he did have a child. The Prime Minister states that if Vincent had a son, that means he would have fulfilled his role as the Emperor, and the real Vincent could sit back atop the throne. The child, however, would be taken into custody. Vincent thinks. Vincent Wallachia has no children. He had left no doubt. Vincent wouldn't even share a bedchamber with a woman. Furthermore, he doesn't even close his eyes in the presence of other people. With that, Vincent states that Vincent Wallachia has no children, and that the actions are justified. The Prime Minister says that if his doubts have been dispelled, then the work must continue. Of course, not even a Prime Minister would expect the existence of a crown prince. That's the reason why he had to be sure from hearing it from his closest confidant. The Prime Minister then asks Vincent on the state of the rebellion, and Vincent has stated that he already gave an answer during the meeting in the throne room. The Prime Minister states that he sent Arakia and Madeline to quell the rebellion, but it will not be enough. We see that the Prime Minister's behaviour in the throne room was not actually agreed upon beforehand. However, that was the actions the Prime Minister had to take to divert suspicion and give back Vincent the confidence of the generals. The Prime Minister suggests that some divine generals could be used to quell the rebellion. However, most of them are busy. Groovy is by the border to Kararagi, Obart has his arm issue also, and Mogro is tied up. With that, they discuss Cecilus. Cecilus is an unknown factor, and that unknown factor will bring miscalculations. That's the reason why Cecilus was removed from the board. Vincent continues by stating that the rebels will most likely see Cecilus as an unknown also. The Prime Minister then asks Vincent what to do about Yorna, and Vincent says they will use Obart, Madeline, Arakia, Chisha and Mogro to fight Yorna and the rebels. This catches the Prime Minister off guard since it's 5 divine generals against 1, and the Prime Minister also mentions other people like Kathma to use. In the capital city, the rebels will come and they will do battle. That is Vincent's statement. However, there is also an error here that Vincent realizes. Despite the use of the Crown Prince to align the views of everyone in the rebellion camp, because the rebellion camp is made up of so many different groups and people, eventually there will be conflict on the side of the rebellion side. At least, there should be. However, there were uncertainties. They continued to talk, namely about how the previous invasion of the capital city of Wallachia was during the event known as the decapitation of Megrizza. This causes the Prime Minister to mutter and laugh, stating that this is what the Wallachian Empire is all about, saying that everyone has a view of the future, even the Emperor. Vincent then listens to this and said that the Prime Minister talks too much. However, his voice held none of the elation or grief that it should have had. And with that, the chapter ends. So, it's a pretty confusing chapter, especially trying to read it. So from my understanding, as you guys know, Chisha and the Prime Minister are in cahoots, right? We know this from when Rem met the Prime Minister. The issue is that the Prime Minister is upset with the Emperor and he's leading the ousting because Vincent has no women. He needs to have children. So of course the Prime Minister was taken aback when he heard that the Crown Prince apparently had a child. So it's kind of funny because if Vincent actually did have a child, then ousting Vincent would have been a miscalculation because it turns out the Emperor did have a child. So Chisha is taking the role of Vincent, and from my understanding his power allows him to transform into other people. And when he does this, he not only takes up their appearance but also their personality and their sort of stance. So the ending section where the Prime Minister and Vincent are talking, we see that like Chisha, who's in the body of Vincent and has taken up Vincent's like personality, he's essentially role playing as Vincent, and we see that Chisha is like losing himself, if that makes sense, because he's essentially role playing as Vincent. So he's questioning whether or not he's actually human, because he's saying, oh, the Prime Minister is laughing about the Wallachian way and so on and so forth, but he's just there emotionless. So, you know, he's questioning himself because he's transforming into different people, and as a result of that, he's losing himself essentially. And yeah, I mean, it's just more setup chapters. Let's see where it goes next time, okay? Thank you for watching.